Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz game number 245. I was white here, kicked off with d4. My opponent played d5 and we got into Queen's Gambit declined, Slav defense with c6. So I play knight f3, the top choice here, which also has the benefit of putting some pressure on the e5 pawn square so that black doesn't have the move pawn to e5. And then my opponent plays the slightly unusual bishop to f5. It's just a little bit rare to develop the bishop that quickly, but there doesn't seem to be any immediate punishment for it. In some positions you have the idea queen b3, which attacks along this diagonal and this diagonal, in this line to hit the pawn on b7. But in this case, the b7 could be defended by the queen, so the bishop doesn't have to retreat. And this pawn is not loose. Although after after queen b3, the best move is queen b6. Looking at it with the chess engine, I'm not going to leave the chess engine. I'm leaving the chess engine off, by the way, so that I can do some tactical quizzes later. So, but e3 is a decent move and keeps an edge for white. So h6, a bit of a rare move. So I guess we've sort of transposed because we were here. There were only 9 games in this position, and suddenly after e3 there's 877 moves. So I guess we could have gotten here by a different move order. And knight f6 would be the normal move here, and what I would certainly expect to see. My opponent played h6, which is a reasonable move. It gives the bishop a retreat square in case I were to attack it with knight a5. So I just keep developing knight c3. Now knight f6, and then I challenge the bishop with bishop d3. And it doesn't seem to have a great square to retreat to. It could drop back to e6, and maybe this bishop can fianchetto later on this diagonal. It's an idea. Or it could go to g4 perhaps. But my opponent chose to trade and play e6. So he's got the pawn triangle, and he's gotten rid of his light squared bishop. So he's not doing too badly. I don't think there's a problem for black in this position. I castle, and he goes bishop e7, and I go e4. But after knight a6, maybe this is not the most, maybe not the best way to play. The engine gives quite an advantage to white, maybe half a pawn, which is much bigger than your usual opening advantage. But it doesn't like my move e5, strangely enough. So I guess e5, it prefers to keep that in reserve and just continue developing with the move like bishop to f4, or a6 to keep the knight out of b4, because knight dropping in there is going to harass my queen. After e5, he throws in knight b4. I think the engine recommends this is the way the engine wants to play it, and why it doesn't like e5. It wants to take here, which attacks my queen, and then play the knight to d4, and thinks that black has sort of equalized here, or nearly equalized. I would still be in favor of white in this position. Basically, the idea is that I've chased the knight away from the f6 square, and this pawn is weak over here on the king side. So I'm looking for a king side attack. But I guess black could move the queen up and try and castle queen side. That's another option. But I have an open c file to attack on the queen side. So I'd say, white has a lot of possibilities in this position, but black has in compensation a good knight on d5. So that's certainly the best way for black to play here. After e5, he played knight b4, kicking my queen. So I drop back to e2. Still want to keep an eye on this square, so the knight can't come in there. And he plays knight h5. So here's your first tactical quiz. What's a good move for white in this position? Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. This one is not too hard to find. I think if I had, I might have been a little bit sleepy during this game or something, because I probably should have spotted this one. Okay, so if you thought of the move g4, that's certainly a very good move in this position, because the knight has no squares, so this wins a piece. And I would normally think that's the best move, and if I had spotted it, I probably would have played it instantly. But what's interesting in this position is the chess engine has a suggestion of an even more precise way to capture that knight, and that is to throw in the move a6 first. So after a6, this knight will retreat, and then you play g4, and this knight really has nowhere to go. The engine says something like this is probably best play, and defend the pawn. So he tries to get a pawn for his piece. But what's curious about that is you might wonder, what was that move a6 doing? So let's go back to the g4 line. So you just play g4 immediately. I try the same thing. So it's black's turn. He just grabs a pawn. You grab the knight. And now he defends the pawn, and you kick the knight. Now the knight has this very good square on d5. So that was what the engine was thinking, or that was what it calculated. Instead of playing g4 immediately, you play a3 first, kick the knight back, and then you play g4, and there's no way from this square over here for that knight to get over to d5. So it's just a more precise way of taking advantage of this trapped knight. So you win the knight, but also you don't let the other knight get activated. So that's an example of how to get the most out of a tactic. It's a pretty clever bit of calculating. Okay, it's something you want to look for, particularly if you have if you play longer time control games. You see a good move. Sometimes you can find little ways like that to make it even stronger and get the game over quicker. Okay, so g3. I played g3 to keep his knight out of f4, and after I played it, I actually realized, oh, f4 was already guarded by the bishop, so it was kind of redundant. He plays g5, and now I kick the knight, drive it back. He goes bishop e3. And so we are sort of maneuvering here. The engine thinks that I'm doing very well through all this part. I'm not a piece up, but still have a strong advantage. And actually, yeah, the material's even. It just likes white, I guess, for his open space and his better piece placement. This knight over here is kind of a sick piece. So rook h4, though, this was an outright blunder, the rook h4 move. So up until that point, black was worse, but he could still play on. There was no reason to give up. But rook h4 is just losing the exchange for no compensation, and should not have been played. Okay, so f4, queen d7. And I played what I thought was an interesting move here. I wanted to play the move f5, but I wasn't sure it was working all that well. It's probably still a good move. Because I'm opening up these lines. I'm giving up a piece, but I'm opening up these lines, and now I can come out with my queen. Actually, I can't. Well, maybe here with the queen. But and if he takes, I can grab there first. Does that work? Yeah. Probably take back. These open lines towards his king are probably good for me. I'm up the exchange, and I can get both my rooks active. He can castle queenside and try to defend that way, I guess. And this pawn exerts quite an influence over the center. So that would have been a reasonable way to play anyway. But I wasn't sure I wanted to give up a pawn, and so I found this move c takes d5. And I think this is a pretty nice move, because no matter how he takes back, he's going to incur some damage. He took back with the e pawn, but if he takes with the c pawn, it opens up the c file here and will make it uncomfortable for him to castle. So he's sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. But this is very strong, and now he just castled, ignoring the fork. But actually, the engine didn't find anything much better than castling. So I think retreating the bishop was slightly better. So he took, and then, instead of castling in this position, retreating the bishop to f8 was slightly better. But it's still kind of an overwhelming position for white to get all these pawns going. Okay, so let's go forward. And so now I have a pretty good attack going, and let's count the material. Yeah, I'm a piece up, and he's got this knight out of play, but I haven't activated my rook either, so I'm not quite firing on all cylinders yet. And he starts pushing his h-pawn. And my king is a little bit exposed. That's one of my weaknesses here, so I have to be a little bit careful. And my opponent plays queen d6, so So this is a good spot. I didn't play the best move here. I played rook A to F1. So, you know, why don't you take a moment and evaluate this position. See if you can figure out what black's threat is and why rook A to F1 is not such a great move. And find a good move for white here. And there's more than one good move, so I'll talk about them. But there's one, I guess the engine liked one move best. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give the answer away. First of all, the threat. The threat from black is to play queen g3, forking my king and my bishop. This bishop here is loose. Nobody is protecting it at all. It's just sitting there. You don't worry about pieces in your own camp a lot of time because they're behind your pawn shield and your opponent can't really get in. But because my pawns have advanced forward, there's no pawn shelter around my king. It's subject to these checks, and I have to worry about these loose pieces back here. So that's the threat. And what's a good way to defend against it? Well, it's an old saying in chess that the best defense is a good offense. And the top choice of the engine is to take on f7. So if we back up a couple moves, when he played queen to d6, he's making a threat, but he also left off the defense of the f7 pawn, so I can just take it. And now I'm threatening to take the rook. So he can give me this. He can give this check, and he can grab the bishop, but I can take the rook with check, and then I can defend my rook, which is hanging, and just be up material and attacking and have these passed pawns. So yeah, I go to a lot of trouble later in the game to win this f7 pawn, and I could have just grabbed it here because he had left off the defense of it. But yeah, I was a little bit out of it during this game, I guess. That's my excuse. Play rook A f1, and he's not playing the best move either. Oh, just to back up for a second, if you thought of the move after queen d6, if you'd thought of the defensive move queen takes h3, this was the engine's second choice. So that's good too. It picks up a pawn and it defends the bishop. It's just that the aggressive move queen takes f7 is slightly preferred. So, but you can give yourself credit for either one there. Okay, so going on with the game, after queen d6, yeah, rook a f1, he played h2 check. I grabbed that, and then he moves his queen back to d8. I'm not sure what his idea was there. But once again, this f7 pawn is loose. I should just grab that. I was thinking about other things here. I play the rook to g2 to defend against the check, which is not threatened anymore. But also I'm defending this g-pawn, and I have ideas of pushing it. He goes knight f8, and I go queen g4 check, driving his king back. Wasn't sure about this. He might just play his knight back, and I haven't really accomplished anything, but he played his king here. Now I can drive his king all the way to the corner, which sets up, you might not see the immediate point of that, but this sets up all kinds of tactics in the future. So let's see. Yeah, we're moving forward here. So I start lining up my rooks on the open file. Very logical. I don't want to trade off my bishop, so I drop it back when he attacked it with the knight. And then I get the other rook lined up on the open file. And then knight to c7 was played. Okay, so in the game I played a move that was pretty good. It was like the engine's second choice, but it wasn't the engine's first choice. There's a much better move than what I played in the game. So here's another tactical quiz for you. Why don't you pause the video and see if you can find the best move for white here. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. The best move for white is just to take this knight over here. And the point is that the queen can't really take it, because having chased the king back in the corner, this is what I mean about being a setup for tactics. You can deliver this check, check, and his king is in big trouble. It has nowhere to go, and he's got a block with the queen. So after this, I'm queen up, and that's pretty much game over. Well, it's been game over for a while, but these tactics are interesting. So yeah, I didn't spot that. I spotted the move rook to e7, which I realize, of course, he can take, but the rook on e7 is really strong, and I've got two of them. So he takes, and that was best play. And now the rook is hitting the knight, and it's also hitting this pawn on f7. So that's what I meant about this important pawn I could have grabbed earlier in the game. Now I'm going to a lot of trouble to win this pawn. But once I grab this pawn, black's position just completely collapses here. And starting from right here, yeah, knight f8 was not the best move. He should have played rook e8. He played knight f8. And starting from this point, my play actually is best play according to the chess engine. So it's kind of nice to see it. You just notice that the queen is short of squares. And so you can start chasing it. And I thought at first, well, it comes here, and what have I got? And then I realized, oh, I have this move, rook e7. And now the queen really has no good square to go to. My queen is guarding this square. The bishop is guarding these squares. So the queen is forced off of the first rank. But then that's checkmate. So actually, the queen had to give herself up for the rook at this point if black wanted to continue playing. But that would have been hopeless, too, just because of the amount of material that black would be down. But that's how the game was finished. Nice little mate there with the queen alone. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.